This podcast is brought to you by Podspot Events.
Hi everyone and welcome to Able Pod.
I was known as a spiritual leader in South Africa. I ran my own ministry. A very good friend of mine who was an occupational therapist, she requested that I complete a shift for a client, got them showered, got them dressed, and then got them on a bus. I had no experience or understanding of the disability sector, but my passion was ignited. Stop waiting. No one's gonna save you. The person that's saving you is you. What was I waiting for? The government to open up an organization that was gonna have equity, belonging, and love? No. My hope is that more and more people in the NDIS landscape would begin to share referrals. Why do I have a long waiting list? And what I'm doing then is I'm cutting off another mother, a father, a family that needs services for their children. Everybody that's in the sector for the right reasons, stay. Please, please stay for the clients.
The pastor never really left you. Are you aware of that? Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in once again to Able Pod. This is our podcast channel on behalf of Able Plus, and I've got a guest with me today that I've been so looking forward to having on the channel, and we finally got him over here. And welcome, Traidy Naidoo.
Thank you so much, Ian.
You're one of those people that's made a huge impact on the space. In fact, it seemed that you arrived out of nowhere a little bit over a year ago, and the space has never been the same. You are universally liked, loved, and I think you have a personality that's been able to cut through a space that's needs personality, in my opinion.
Wow, thank you. What an introduction. I hope the universe truly loves me that way.
I think they do, mate. And I think that the reason you resonate is that people feel warm and comfortable with you. You're 100% yourself. You are authentic. And I've watched you in a crowd setting. They're actually drawn to you emotionally and physically. Though I've seen them hover around you. How does that feel?
Well, it feels amazing. I think partly it's because of my name, Traidy, so they're probably thinking it's a hot man that can fix something for them. But thank you so much for your humble, kind words. I would also say, before we start, I honor you and I really want to say thank you so much for what you have done. Also to do this podcast within your home, your sanctuary, your place of peace and serenity. I really honor you for that, and I really also pray that today is going to be filled with joy and love. I've listened to some of the other podcasts and episodes, quite heavy, hard-hitting stuff. I'm known to get deep spiritually, but I really do also hope today we can have some fun and we can bring some joy, not only back to the sector, but also to this space and this environment that we're currently in.
Traidy, I think it's a huge part of your brand, mate. I really do. I think fun is in there, as well as spirituality and championing lots of good things in the sector. So to kick off, for those people, and there'll be a lot of people on this channel that don't know your backstory, take us back. Take us back to where you feel comfortable. Where does the Traidy Naidoo story really begin?
Okay, so I grew up in South Africa, so you can probably hear from the accent today. So I grew up in South Africa in a small place called Port Elizabeth. It's now known as Gqeberha. We've gone back to our traditional names. Anyway, I came here after I had already qualified as a solicitor and worked in my dad's law firm. I was known as a spiritual leader in South Africa. I ran my own ministry, which was an affirming ministry, and then kind of brought all that community services knowledge and the advocacy when I came here.
Okay.
So yeah.
Can I stop there? Because that's a lot.
Yes.
In itself. Hang on. Dad is a solicitor.
Yes.
You're also a qualified solicitor, which means you're tertiary qualified, and probably 4 or 5 years so. There's reference to being a minister.
Yep.
So we're heavily involved in the church.
Very, very involved in the church and trying to move the pendulum in the conversation when it comes to inclusion and diversity and love.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a lot. Right. Okay. So we're there, and we're still in South Africa at this stage.
Yes. So my ministry in South Africa was in constant irritation to the conservative beliefs, I would say, or the general conservative beliefs, because we had closed our ranks quite a lot a lot of those that were part of the LGBTQIA community experienced probably the most disenfranchisement from the church. And I made it my mission and my calling at that stage to begin to open up those ranks, but then also to move the church from focusing on what's happening inside of a building to outside. I just had the very strong belief that Jesus's main ministry was outside. He spent more time outside of the temple, and if anything, he was challenging the structures that the church had actually created, which actually stopped a lot of people or prevented people from experiencing his communion and fellowship. And so I kind of see the same thing happening if you look at today, modern day Christianity. I think there's room for grace, for love, and for that type of a realness or sincerity to what they're preaching and what they're teaching. So I decided, okay, I'm going to use that as a platform, not only with ministry per se, but also with all our work that we did out in the community. So a lot of HIV and AIDS, teaching and education in schools, a lot of anti-bullying in schools, because this was the time as well when online platforms were being created. In South Africa, we have a platform called O Toilet. It would be a sore point for a lot of people because a lot of school children were being bullied. So their partners would sometimes record them without their consent and then upload and share those personal videos and details of them. A lot of people were, so there was a lot of cyberbullying. A lot of people were being outed with addresses and everything. So you can imagine as well, South Africa is not as far as we are here in the Western world, I would say, in Australia specifically. So a lot of my friends have been hurt and harmed and put in harm's way, by platforms like that. So already I started questioning, how do our platforms and our structures interact also with those that are from disenfranchised communities? And that started making me think a little bit more about the work I was doing in the church and outside.
So the establishment recognizes that you're doing things differently. In a very interesting way. You have a following. You're going into the community a lot more than the other facets of the church. And you're going into the community and you're going into populations or vulnerable populations or those that are at risk through cyberbullying or through their sexual choice. And you were trying to provide guidance and a voice of healing.
Yes, I would say that. I think also we were at university and, a large majority of South Africa, we haven't moved past apartheid. There's still racism, there's still bigotry. It's very rife there.
It's 2023.
Oh, well, it's very different there. So I would say, and if I compare it to Australia, not to be rude or to sound negative, but here in Australia, it's very sophisticated type of racism, whereas when you go to South Africa, it's very overt. It's very in your face. And it's very, very much so. So you need to be strong.
Sophisticated racism versus an overt racism. What a fascinating complex. You're suggesting this culture has evolved and we're sophisticated in the way that we do that, and I would agree.
Yep.
But there, it's in your face. It's still quite okay to say certain comments, certain racial slurs in front of your family, driving your car. Oh, there's so-and-so. This is just part of everyday life in South Africa still.
Yes. I think there's been a huge pushback. I've seen it. The hope that I've seen is with my brother's age. Okay. A lot of them don't understand it. They don't have the significant memories or pain attached to it.
So there is hope.
There's hope.
How much younger than you is your brother?
So
let's give us all some hope, please.
9 years. 9 years, but with him, even when we went to school, so I grew up very, very poor. And then eventually my family, we came into wealth, we became educated, and that's standing on the shoulders of our grandparents and a lot of people, our communities that used to put money together, to support us, even our business. But I would say with my brother, when he went to school, he didn't see it. So I have one memory of my dad talking about someone specific and saying, that person from a specific race. And my brother said, who? He just couldn't see it, couldn't see race at all, which to me was very heartwarming and was like, oh my gosh, he doesn't see it.
It was a warm moment for you that he was raised differently.
Yes.
That there was progress.
Yes.
I love that, mate.
And then I've seen that with his friends as well. And everyone else who's younger, the younger generation, I would say a lot of them don't see what we see.
It's a beautiful naivety and long way at last.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, we've studied racism.
Yeah.
It's a concept. You know, it's in our textbooks. It's on page 145, you know, to 163 for the exam, but have no real grid or understanding or memories attached to that, which is wonderful. And I pray for more. And I'm seeing a lot more mixed race couples, you know, those types of things.
In South Africa?
Oh, amen. Thank you. Please make more colored people like me. We're gorgeous. We're blessing humanity right now.
You are.
It's a ministry.
Okay, I've got you placed in South Africa with a strong following. The establishment, you've caught their eye. They're not particularly enjoying what you're doing. You're also highly qualified and highly intelligent because you've gone through a tertiary qualification.
I am? Really?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
apparently,
You say so.
And so what's next? Why wasn't that enough? Why aren't you there? Why aren't you building your ministry and continuing to do what you do?
Well, listen, that was amazing. Being in South Africa, having the ministry, seeing people's lives change was awesome. I had a very sad breakup, actually, which prompted me to come to Australia.
Okay.
I was dating a woman at that time for 9 years. We'd been together, and then that relationship kind of fell apart. And that kind of prompted me to go, okay, I need to travel, I need to get out. Because I was young. So you're young, you're qualified. You know, my parents said to me, you need to travel, you need to see the world, you need new experiences, you need to be around a new norm. Because you're just stuck in South Africa and that model. So I'd also reached, I would say, that pivot. I'd pivoted in South Africa. I'd gone as far as I could go. I now just needed to decide if I was actually going to incorporate the church or not. And then I decided no. So when I came to Australia, my eyes were opened. I landed in Parramatta. I loved the multiculturalism of Parramatta. You had people from every nation, tribe, and tongue. And eventually, my family ended up with another South African family. We ended up going to Hillsong. I know, I can imagine. So please, everybody just breathe. I know I've just said the H word, yes. So we ended
I've
up
been there myself. It's okay.
like, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're okay. So I went to Hillsong because I was also a songwriter and a worship leader in South Africa.
Sure. The music is huge for that
Huge.
business. Yeah.
And crazy story with Hillsong. You know, my parents got divorced and then they remarried. You know, there was full redemption in our family. And at that time, Hillsong was extremely significant. I think to a lot of people.
It's a powerful movement.
Powerful
and when you
movement,
go there, the music, there's something about it.
Right?
Yeah.
So the excellence, the standard of excellence in the songwriting and stuff was just unparalleled.
Yeah.
And so I decided to go there. I had a wonderful time that evening. My mom, who's a very strong spiritual person and healer, ended up crying, and eventually I asked her, hey, what's going on? You know, why are you crying? I know the music's beautiful, but it's not, you're crying like you're mourning. And she said, I'm going to lose you to Australia. So she just had this knowing, And I think a lot of mothers know that. They have that intuition. So I will honor that as well. So my mom just said, no, I'm going to lose you to Australia. You have to come here. And I said, I don't want to be here. I'm good. Like, I love it, but I don't love it enough to stay. Yeah. So I went back. Anyway, I was with a spiritual leader that I really respect and love back home in South Africa. And in a prayer meeting, she turned and looked at me and she said, I see a passport above your head and it has a kangaroo on it. You're going to Australia and that's where you will live. And so eventually I decided to apply. I got rejected twice. I came into Australia on the third time to study law. So I was also at my wit's end. Eventually I said, listen, God, like, universe, if I'm meant to be going to Australia, like, shouldn't Australia be accepting me the first time?
Yeah, for sure. If things are meant to be, they're going to be easy, surely.
You know, and
just
then
open the door.
I
I'm
know.
coming.
And then I went back to my mom and this leader and was like, look at what's going on here. And she She said to me, grapes have to be crushed to become wine.
Okay, I like this. Yeah.
Time. Seasons and times, in her wisdom.
Yeah.
With her hair flowing and the wind blowing.
Amazing.
I was very upset. I had words from Egypt, is what I would say, for her that day. But eventually believed, that, yep, what is for me is for me. But when I came to Australia, I had the most beautiful experience, but except for my first day of university.
Do you want to tell us about that or not?
Oh, well, it's a fun story. You might need to cut that out. So first day of class for law, because I was going to be, I was requalifying as a solicitor here. I was sitting in class and I had a lovely Aboriginal girl sitting next to me. I didn't know because she had ocean blue eyes and blonde hair.
Okay, wow.
But we started speaking because in the class or in the course material, we were going to cover the Indigenous community and population. I was fascinated by that. Anyway, my lecturer walked in and then another girl came and sat next to me. When she sat beside me, I said hello as a custom. So in South Africa, we greet people.
Sure.
If you get on a bus, you greet. You have to greet all the elders first. You have respect.
Do you? This is part of your culture?
It's just normal. You walk in, you respect, you say, hi, how are you?
You're literally
Are you
going
well?
through a bus saying hi.
You'll just say hi, yes. You give a wave as well. You can do it,
Yeah.
Jamie, my partner, has seen me do this in a shopping center. If I see another African person, I have to greet them.
Oh, do you?
And we do this quick little nod and an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So he was like, that's so strange. It's like our own secret code. But while I was sitting in class, this girl looked at me and she said, oh my gosh, where are you from? I said, I'm from South Africa. She said, lovely, I love your accent. She said, I have a question for you. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe she's just excited. Maybe she's thinking he's exotic. He's from Africa. He's got gorgeous lips and big nose. And eventually she turned around and she said, is it true that all Africans and all people in Africa have AIDS?
Oh.
And it broke my heart. It pierced me like a knife. The lovely Aboriginal girl beside me jumped up in my defense and she basically, told her off. My lecturer told that girl to leave the class because she couldn't plead ignorance in that time.
Yeah.
And it was that type of, you see, the question was posed. So someone could actually say, oh, but she doesn't know. Traidy, you're the first South African that she's ever met. But I would argue that she knew exactly what she was doing and she had asked it in a very tactful way. At a very opportune time, especially in a law class, with a bunch of solicitors and legal minds.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was my first experience, and I was quite shocked by that. But at the same time, I had grace for her, and I ended up going back to the teacher and saying, please don't actually discipline her. I want to extend an olive branch of grace to her, because I believe if I truly am the first South African, that that she sees that we rise above. And it's just words. It's okay.
Remarkable, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like there was some malice there.
Just
not enjoying that being your first.
Just a little.
Your first Aussie.
But I mean,
experience.
what a great experience as well to have somebody else who's Indigenous come to my defense.
Yeah. Yeah, let's look at that.
What a wonderful opportunity. I need to look at that and I need to honor that, where when we were going through the course material in the class, she was saying, I wouldn't actually get up and defend myself or defend somebody else. But I felt compelled to do that to you, which was so beautiful because we ended up speaking about being Indigenous people from different places. And we actually have a fairly large demographic of Indigenous Australians, I'm talking about First Nations Australians, that are actually in South Africa as well.
Oh, really?
Yes, so I've just heard all the research recently, so that's blown my mind. And the first time I actually saw a group of Aboriginal individuals or a family, they actually reminded me of a family that I know in South Africa. But then again, the mix in South Africa is just so wonderful and so broad. But yeah, so I was like, oh, they're like us. They're bush people as well. So I was like, wonderful.
Lots of similarities.
Yeah, lots of similarities in that sense. And I think also just the spiritual understanding and literacy that they have is some of the same that we have in our cultures as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we're in Australia. We've made a giant leap of faith, and we've decided to renew our law degree in Australia. But I get the funny feeling that's not where you end up. What happens then?
No, so I just didn't feel that I was going to serve that demographic of individuals that needed that level of advocacy the way I was meant to. So I volunteered for an organization that does free domestic violence counseling.
Okay.
And they provide solicitors and legal advice, actually. And it was amazing being with them because there was that sense of advocacy and community again. But what happened to me was a very good friend of mine who was an occupational therapist. Her name is Angela Mariani. Anyway, she invited me and requested that I complete a shift for a client that she couldn't complete one day. So anyway, I went for the shift. The client was escalated. I had just done what I felt any human being would do, which is cook a very good breakfast for this client.
Love it.
So bring healing through food. Anyway, we ended up having a wonderful conversation. I got them showered, got them dressed, got them prepared for, their day of work, and then got them on a bus. Had no experience or understanding of the disability sector, but my passion was ignited. I couldn't
really?
sleep that night. It was an insatiable, strong, warm energy when I was busy cooking, when I was busy doing all those what we call boring, mundane tasks.
Yeah.
And this is why I also love the sector and partly why Chosen Family does what it does, is because I see the beauty and the joy in that. And getting that client on board, I had no idea that there was another client in that home and that there was cameras.
Oh.
So I ended up getting a phone call from the team leader who actually was doing a sleepover in the back of the property in a granny flat. And they ended up calling me and offering me a job and said, listen, what we saw on the cameras, what we heard from the other client was that you were absolutely amazing. You de-escalated them because they threw a table at me. But we don't care about that. Fun. Welcome to the disability sector. If you don't get spat on and pinched and bitten, I don't think you're in the sector for the right reason. Like, this is welcome to the sector.
Amazing, mate. I'm not sure I can work in this space
Oh,
like you do. You're
I think
at the
it's
coal face,
beautiful.
right?
Like, it's wonderful. You learn to love. You love.
But
your
hang on,
parts.
you go through this and you do these simple chores, and at night you're falling asleep and you're thinking, "What a
Can't.
great day!"
I can't.
I feel like I've been of service. I've helped
Oh my
someone.
gosh. Yep.
It's a strong reaction.
It felt like ministry. So the first time I'd ever preached, so I was in a school that was an all-boys school, by the way, so very, very difficult to break through, but I ended up speaking to a lot of the boys about some very, very interesting, sensitive topics and got through to them. And then my ministry was born then. So it was the same feeling. It was that calling. This is what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life. Bring joy in this way. Revitalize the sector, not only with joy, but replenish it as well, with passion. Why did we get into the sector? Instead of becoming so commercialized that we forget, and it's void then of humanity. So, yeah, I couldn't sleep that night. And I kept thinking about, and it's in our practice with Chosen Family, a concept called Ubuntu. So in South Africa, Ubuntu is this concept of relational interconnectedness. I am because you are.
Okay.
I coexist here because you exist. If I water you, I'm actually watering myself. If I bless you, I'm blessing myself.
This is a very strong concept.
Powerful concept that
It's not known in my culture. It's pretty insular. I am me. Blah blah blah. But you're suggesting that we're all part of the same equation, and what happens to you happens to me at some level.
Yes. Okay. And so if I care for you and give care, consideration, compassion, love, mercy, grace, if I do all of that to you, I'm actually shifting that energy on myself. I think it's very different then to the normal Western idea of being independent and being on your own.
Yeah,
Here you're relying on your community.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful concept. I like it. It makes me feel good thinking about it. Okay, so we're starting to get elements of a calling. It started in the ministry. You felt the same thing again after helping the participant. It was cooking a simple meal. Sure, you dodged a table, but in the end, you got them on the bus and
Well,
did your job. And
darling,
people
I
were
mean-
watching. It's funny how people watch when you're at your best, right?
You stay alive this way, don't you? Dodging a table.
So you wake up. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with this calling?
Yep. So eventually I ended up working for a whole bunch of organizations that I shall not mention. Some good ones and really some ones who started off with really great callings and a good vision and kind of got lost along the way. And then eventually Jamie and myself, so my partner Jamie and I, sat down and I said to him, I have this dream. I've always had this dream for a company that provides equity and belonging and community. Those three words are the main things that I see us doing. The last
Equity, belonging,
equity,
community.
belonging, community,
Okay.
and then the last thing that I don't often mention that we would bring is joy.
Good.
So I'd looked at the sector, seen how we had shifted from ADAC to NDIS, and then eventually saw as well, oh my gosh, what's missing is the joy element. We're not having fun anymore. So I remember, taking my clients out to the beach, and I found those things, they were so amazing, connecting clients and taking them from home. So a lot of our participants, would be waiting all week for us. So they only have 4 hours of support.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine being in their shoes, you're waiting for your Wednesday shift, let's say.
You are.
You're waiting all day just for that 4 hours of connection and interconnectedness and going out and seeing something new and being away from your family.
It's an interesting way to transpose the relationship and think about that 4 hours. It's the golden time to get out of your surroundings, your four walls, go and see something new, hopefully in a safe environment, but an interesting one. Let the world wash over you, and then you have 4 hours the following week to do the same.
Yes.
It's like, what are we going to do in those 4 hours?
Yes. So that excitement, that joy, also of trying to come up with stuff. So I discovered Sydney because of my clients.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of these routes to take or, some of the side routes because I didn't have the financial means at that time because I was studying.
Yeah.
When you're studying, you're on a certain limited amount of hours of work. So my clients, I owe them everything because they were the ones that exposed me to great coffee places, in Bondi or wherever. They were the ones that exposed me to films and movies, I got to watch most of the Avengers because of my clients, So that type of joy, going bowling, on a Saturday, those simple little things that I think we often overlook and we forget that are so special, going and playing pool, whatever it is, that type of joy is what I still hold very, very dear to my heart.
I love it. It's not particularly expensive.
No.
But it's, it is special. Okay, you tell Jamie about your dream. What does he do with this?
Yeah, what does he do with this? No, he's a wonderful partner. And so he just said, listen, if this is what you believe, the universe is calling you to do, then you should do it. We had a very interesting circumstance as to how we started it. I won't really mention that, but basically what happened was I had paid for an event in Sydney. I think it was called the Developing Communities event. It's one of these, places that also host events. Anyway, it was in the city. I'd paid for a stall. I'd paid, I think, like $4,000 or something just to be there, to be presenting. And so Jamie and I, the night before, had to come up with a company name because I registered the company name.
Oh, the night before?
The night before.
You'd committed to the stall?
I'd committed to the stall.
With no brand?
No
dream.
brand, nothing, no website, no pamphlets. I mean, absolutely nothing. So I told Jamie, I'm going to go into the room and go pray and just meditate. And if this is meant to be, the universe will give me everything I need. And I came back probably about 15 minutes later with everything. I had our values, our mission, our name, branding, all of it. All of it was there. It was clear to me. And I knew. And so I went and exhibited. I went and ran around and greeted everybody. I actually met Maria, who we now know, Maria Binney, there that time, actually.
You were your fabulous self. You were
Yeah.
short on merchandise and brand equity,
darling.
but you were high on energy.
High on
and
energy,
love. Yeah.
high on love, and
Yeah.
high on caffeine, definitely. And my ADHD medication. Thanks,
okay.
Ritalin.
That's an interesting
Combination.
You're owning the expo.
Yes, it was wonderful. But it was awesome running around and actually asking people, what's your origin story? Why did you start this? Very sad. Most people couldn't tell me why they started their company.
Oh, couldn't they?
But that kind of made us different and made me go, this is really what I'm called to do, because I know exactly why I'm here. I have a purpose. And the universe will bless purpose. And people will realize, they'll feel the energy. They'll be drawn to it because it's authentic. It's real.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, walking around in any way. I think I was quite sober-minded in the way that I was speaking as well, and delivering what we do, what type of service I wanted us to do as well. There was there's no fluff.
No.
And I've kept to that there's no fluff.
You have, mate. There's a fantastic authenticity about you and your brand, and it's become one of the best known brands, certainly in New South Wales, if not pushing into Queensland and other states. So, very, very good, my
All the
friend.
haters, I'll be getting me a mail later today, but it's okay.
It's okay.
Joking, I'm joking. My fans.
So I think your personality is a huge part of that. I think the authenticity is part of it. I think your championship of the LGBTQIA community is a big part of that as well.
Yep.
Talk to us about that. What does that mean to you? What does advocacy look like? Tell us some of the stories. How have you reshaped the space?
So I would say both Jamie and I are obviously in an LGBTQIA relationship. And so a lot of it's from lived experience. The name Chosen Family was chosen as well because it was coined by the LGBTQIA community.
Okay.
It was actually coined during the AIDS or HIV pandemic. And so a lot of us, just like me, personally have been disowned by our families for what we believe and for who we are.
You hadn't mentioned that.
Yes,
before.
so, well, there's more complexity. Of course, there's depth, darling. We're starting. I can't just jump into something like that.
Where along the journey do we get disowned? Where are we?
Multiple stages, but and that's there's a lot of complexity there. But let me say what I want to say about the Chosen Family and why we got the name. So, like me, a lot of us have been disowned, right? So when I was working as a support worker for a couple of companies, a lot of the times family members would drop off their children at a SIL home and they would never be seen again. And so a lot of my clients were disowned as well for having a disability, something that they did not do. They were born this way, right? And so I became their chosen family. I was there for Christmas and birthdays and New Year's, and there was a lot of anxiety and angst and hurt and shame, attached to those significant days. But it was up to myself and our staff to actually redeem that. And so when I realized that, that's how the name Chosen Family came about, because I was like, equity, belonging, community, joy, chosen family. And sometimes your chosen family provide you solace, a place or a space to be more authentic than your own family does. And we also have to forgive our families for that. We have to forgive them for that as well. So
it's a great name, it's a great brand, and the more you talk about it, the more I'm endeared to it. The more I hear the backstory, the more I like it. But I want to know where along that journey you felt abandoned by your family and they outed you for your beliefs.
Well, listen, that started while I was in South Africa already. I was already doing the work of reconciliation, forgiveness, and preaching this message to my community, because I didn't want the LGBTQIA community that I was leading to be led by bitterness and hatred and unforgiveness, because nothing good comes from that. That's the breeding ground of shame. That's the breeding ground of unforgiveness. And you can't... What I used to teach people is often, your families are probably seeing a part of themselves. There's a mirror coming up. and you're showing a part of them that they have not healed or reckoned yet. You know, masculinity doesn't need to look a certain way. To me, masculinity is a man that looks after his family, that goes to work, that does what he says he's doing, you know, that's loyal, that pays the bills, that comes and loves his children, has the ability or the strength to say, I love you to his daughter, instead of giving her the cold shoulder. You know, is being stern, but also being a guiding force and being compassionate to your son. That's masculinity too. So a lot of that type of stuff is a projection. So I always teach people, that's a projection. It's nothing about you. That's on their journey, they're stuck there. And so you're a grace grower. You're growing something in them. You're provoking them to a certain part of the garden in their hearts that they have not healed, that they've not tended to.
You're speaking in a very spiritual way at the moment, and I want to make sure that all of our audience understand it. You're talking about holding a mirror, you're talking about personal growth, you're talking about generations getting stuck in a certain place.
Yep.
These are big concepts.
Big.
And they're not easily overcome.
No.
And they're hard to explain.
Yep.
But you seem to have a good handle on all of that.
Because I've done the work. You know, you can only take people where you've been. So I can only help you grow and heal on your journey if I've actually been there as well and had the bitter poison and distilled that and eventually realized that that would actually be my healing. That would be the very thing that emancipated me. Why would I expect and have unhealthy expectations on my family? They don't know who I am. I know who I am. So it's really about encouraging others to stop waiting. No one's going to save you. The person that's saving you is you. So what are you waiting for? And that was the same with Chosen Family. What was I waiting for? The government to open up an organization that was going to have equity, belonging, and love and community? No. The onus is on me.
Not joy. It's not a word I've ever seen written in a document, to be honest.
It's not in the price guideline, right? It would be a lovely line item.
It
would be a lovely line item.
It's just such a great word.
But, you know, we often tend to wait for others to emancipate us. But no, that comes from us. So it's teaching people that type of work. So when you talk about, you know, being disowned, I was disowned by my family, and please, I love my family. I love my family more than they could ever hate me. Ever. You know, I've stood face to face with my family members who have assaulted me physically and said, I love you. Blood in mouth, whatnot. I love you. Because I know at the end of the day, if I lead with love, if I sow love, I will reap that reward and that harvest. It will come. Maybe not now, but it will come. I believe in these concepts that I'm talking about. I'm not just saying, oh, I believe in equity and belonging. No, I actually I live this stuff out. And so I've seen it's been able to create a space for Chosen Family, for the work we do. And it's healed a lot of our clients. It's worked with a lot of our clients and our staff.
I have no doubt. What a very, very powerful image you paint. Let's talk about spirituality. Where did it come into your life? Is it religious based? Is it based on the background that you have? Is it South Africa? Is it 100%?
Love how you said that, South Africa.
Is it?
Yes, definitely. I would actually say I would attribute a large amount of it to two things. Largely South Africa. We're very spiritually aware. A lot of our concepts as well, our cultural guidance, you know, comes from concepts that are more spiritual than they are actual physical things. I would also say my mother.
Okay.
My lovely mother. My mom's she was a teacher, not only in one of the most impoverished, dangerous schools in South Africa in Port Elizabeth, but also my mom was a very strong, prayerful, spiritual giant in our church and our community. And so I saw a lot of things and was taught a lot from her during the holidays, because at a young age, I started having a lot of spiritual encounters that I thought were physical, but it wasn't. So to give you an example, my mom we had a lot of women come to our home because if they were battered or they had gone through a messy divorce, my mom was kind of that type of healer and someone who could give them guidance. And a lot of times I would have visions and see things that weren't there, but I'd know things about them, that we'd find out later on was actually true.
And you could share those with your mum?
So I could share it with her because she would be able to frame it for me and actually teach me, what was actually real and what was actually a concept or what I was trying to be taught. But one of the main principles my mom taught me was, if you're being gifted by the universe or God, whatever you want to call him, them, it's because you're trustworthy, and you actually have to also earn that trust and maintain that trust. A lot of stuff that I do see, Ian, that I don't share. My mom used to teach me you need to sit and process that, and sometimes you actually just need to, in another way, deliver that message to that person without telling them, I had a vision of this,
Is this these visions still happening? Do they happen?
They still
on a regular
happen.
basis?
It's more
Like,
just energy. I think it's really picking up on energy at times.
Yeah.
A lot of people are discerning. I think many are in tune with spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, intuition, more than they know, but they've been taught that they have to actually shun that part away, which I want to provoke that part. I want people to actually begin to rely on that and have more confidence in what they're seeing, what they're picking up, and what they're feeling. Mothers do this very well, especially single mothers.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe they operate in that realm much more clearer than a lot of people would actually believe.
So let's put you in a space with lots of people wanting your time, your attention. You come into contact with them. You're probably very perceptive. You're very spiritual. You can probably come to all sorts of feelings around them. When you leave that space, have you got energy or have you got drained from that? What does life look like outside of that spotlight?
So I don't get drained anymore. I think one of the things we all need to learn is boundaries and the joy of boundaries. You can walk into a space, and to give you an example of this, I don't know if you've ever sat in a room, someone's joined you, and you've gone, my God, like what's going on? The energy levels have just dropped, or the atmosphere has just become cold and weird, or that person just brought some yucky thing with them. And I mean,
probably have, but I think you've got this multiplier, like you're seeing it 100 times clearer. Like I just, something's off, but I've never really thought about it like that.
But still, just the something's off means there's an awareness.
Yeah, but I don't feed it.
You don't have to, it's okay. I mean, but even just recognizing, just that it's been dropped there, that yep, something's off. That person's not doing well today. They could be smiling at you, they could give you a hug. And you would just, you'll have that, I think people need to be more confident. You don't need to go to a spiritual healer or leader, to get that. It's in you. Everything you need, I really believe that. Everything you need is in you.
Traidy, it's such a deep topic.
Sorry, we'll go so deep if you want, but I don't want to do that, to the listeners. They'll be like, okay.
Nobody else has talked like this on the podcast.
Okay,
and
we can go there.
Well, I just think it's something that you might have. I think you might be gifted in that way. And I think I just want to know if there's any downside with that or whether you can just see the...
Yes, there is a huge downside because I have filtered my lens to only seeing the positive and the good.
Okay.
I only see abundance in everyone. So at times, I can be hurt and disappointed because that person can choose whether they want to operate out of abundance and goodness and joy and generosity, or whether they're going to go out of lack and poverty, in a different sense, or selfishness or their own gain. So my hope is that more and more people in the NDIS landscape, for example, would begin to share referrals instead of saying they do. Instead of hoarding power, hoarding services, and I must talk about this because Chosen Family's gone through a massive shift. We, at one stage, started providing SIL, respite, core, support coordination. We started adding things like everybody else does, to their list. And then eventually, I had a very significant moment or something happened to me while I was in South Africa, now on my last trip, that made me come back and go, nope, we're cutting down. That was not the original intent. That was not the original purpose. And we were acting out of lack and fear that there wasn't enough resource in the industry. We were acting out of that selfish gain, like I need to make sure that I have my own longevity in the sector. But that's not the energy you want.
Okay.
Because you'll always be chasing it. It'll never be enough. It's an endless pit. So I see that often when I'm in the sector with somebody. You can see it. And my hope is that people actually learn, no, we should be sharing. This is community. Why do I have a long waiting list? And what I'm doing then is I'm cutting off another mother, a father, a family that need services for their children. How dare you do that? How dare you do that?
The pastor never really left you. Are you aware of that? Sometimes your phrasing, your view, it's still there.
I've been told.
It's a good thing. It's a great thing. Mate, you've got a great business. You've got a very high profile. What are you going to do with it? What does the future look like? What's Traidy Naidoo's next step?
Next steps are make more room and space for everybody else.
Ooh.
Next steps is create platforms of equity and belonging. You had the lovely Jacob here today. Met Jacob a while ago, and what a blessing, full circle to see him here again today. I think making room for others as well to come into the sector who have an amazing view. They're creating their own table of chosen family as well. I think that's ultimately my goal. And then to bring joy and laughter back into the sector, and lots of wine. I really feel it's my calling from the universe for wine. I'm getting a vision right now. Wine for all the support coordinators and LACs and everybody else that's feeling a little, run down in the sector. But I also want to say to everybody that's in the sector for the right reasons, stay. We're just as tempted to also leave and to sell out and to go do something else. Like, we can do the same. But I would encourage everybody, please stay for the clients. Stay. Allied Health, please don't go anywhere. A lot of them are leaving, and that hurts my heart a lot.
Wow. So I threw the question open to you, what do you want to see? And there was nothing selfish in your response. You actually want to invite further people into the space that have something extraordinary to offer.
Yep.
You're actually suggesting that your brand is one of many that can be at the table. You're wanting to become more collaborative. You're wanting people to share participants more openly. And it's a good thing, mate. Your spirituality has been profound, and I've really enjoyed it. And I think if we were to do a further podcast, I'd love to drill down on that. It's not something that I've come across before, but it's something that I'm intrigued by. And I know it's real because I've seen the way people are around you. You have a certain magnetism, and it's rare. And I think you've developed that skill, and probably all of us have a little bit of it, but you've honed your craft.
Wow.
Hey?
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
So kind. Oh, my God.
You've been remarkable.
How much did I pay you, to say all these beautiful things about me?
Traidy, you're one in a million, mate. I think you do bring the joy. You're such a colourful character in this space with such a big, warm personality, and NDIS needs that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks very much.
Humbled, man. Once again, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
You invited me into your home. That's dangerous.
It's an absolute honour. So stick around, and we'll close this one out now, guys. That was Traidy Naidoo. This has been Able Pod. On behalf of Able Plus, our podcast channel, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. He's special in so many ways. Traidy, once again, mate, thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.